Right, I will call our special meeting of Central Transportation Parking Authority to order. Do we have any citizens to be heard? If not, then we'll get into our item for individual consideration, and that's to adopt a resolution approving the real estate purchase agreement for the Santa Fe parking garage. Parking committee and the finance committee have met and recommended approval of it to the trust. And unless there's any discussion, Jim, do you have any discussion? Or?
No, I understand that it is in substantially in alignment with the memorandum of understanding that or the letter of intent that we approved a month ago.
And we discussed a couple changes that Jason brought to our attention about event parking and reviewed that. So if there is no discussion or no further discussion, then
I'm sorry, Jason had asked me just to speak to a couple of things that we discussed in the Finance Committee just for the purpose of getting it in the record.
Okay. Yes.
One thing that Chris had asked me to talk about in the Finance Committee is on page 16 of the agreement under section 10.2, it's paragraph E that's at the top, and that is because of the fact that we're taking an asset out of the system that we have to address the bond indenture requirements in order to take that asset out. And basically, to fulfill that requirement, what we have to do is look back at the revenues of the system over the past 18 months, and exclusive of the revenues or the net revenues generated by the Santa Fe garage, ensure that the remaining revenues of the system would still meet at least 1.25% of the, 1.25 coverage of the debt service requirements. And so what we'll do is do the confirmation on that. I will sign a certificate. We'll send that to the trustee bank, and that will meet the requirement of the bond indenture. Are there any questions on that? We'd also discussed what will happen with the proceeds once we receive those proceeds, and they will go back to Cotpa once the deal is closed. We receive a check that will go to Cotpa and will be deposited with Cotpa and then invested just like we do other capital funds that are in the trust. And we'll hold those obviously and be using that. The intent would be we'll use that to help us in funding the requirements that we have with the Convention Center garage. But we'll come back with all of that information when we get ready to do the Convention Center garage and come back and review that with the trust at that time.
Chairman, if I could, to make a clarification on a couple of other things that came up in the committee meetings, again, just for the record. I did want to make sure that everyone was aware of the change in section 1.6. That's on page 4. That has to do with the escrow and completing the improvements for the University of Central Oklahoma. As you know, we are looking to bid that project, make those improvements, which will then lead to a long-term lease with UCO, which is part of this agreement and what the purchaser will assume in terms of the leases that we currently have with the garage. And what the purchaser has asked is basically that we set up an escrow equivalent to the amount of that construction project. That's still to be determined once we receive the bids. But we will go ahead and set that funding aside in an escrow, and then we will pay the claims out of that escrow as the project is completed. So that did come in as we developed the real estate purchase agreement as one of the things that we negotiated. And then just a clarification too on the event parking. The garage, as mentioned on page 3, section 1.3, the provisions for event parking, the purchaser does plan to keep the parking open for event parking. That is general event parking. The arrangements that we have currently with the Thunder for season ticket holders and their parking, that is all decided by the Thunder. So I think it's kind of yet to be seen how many or if any will still be in the Santa Fe, but it will be open for the general public, certainly for basketball games and other large events. And then just for the sake of our current customer base that may be listening to today's meeting. A reminder that we have a feasibility period included in this agreement of 60 days, and then the closing for the garage will actually take place sometime after that feasibility period. So I just wouldn't want any current customer to think after today or after the council meeting next week that, you know, all of a sudden the parking won't be available, because that's not correct. We will work with all of our existing parkers that might be relocated from the Santa Fe and find them and offer them locations within the existing system.
Quickly, Jason, as you spelled out the arrangement with UCO, that is what the appraiser assumed was going to be the case in coming up with the 22.5?
That's right. That project is included in the
So
appraised
those
value.
assumptions.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my question long ago, is how do we recover the funds? But it was built into the 22.5.
That's correct.
All right. Any other comments or questions?
I'd move we approve the resolution.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. I don't know any other items from any of the trustees. We've accomplished our mission for the day. Oh, so we're adjourned.
Okay.
We're adjourned.